all Bonami's family. Great supportive community, close-knit caring family. We're non-judgy, blanket fuzzy, stigma-free. All Bonami's family, friends, family, and community. We all Bonami's family. Teaching, sharing is our key. Great big thanks to you all.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Stigma Stompers, Namiri County PA's one and only podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Abby.
And I'm your other host, Janana.
Today we are joined by Kyle, who will tell you more about himself. I guess we'll just get right into it. I don't really have much else to say. We're just going to get right into it, and you'll learn more about him through this. Yeah. So introduce yourself, kind of a little bit about your journey before we dive deeper.
Okay. I'm Kyle. So, as far as my journey goes, I guess it started out rough. This addiction and mental health thing for a very long time. I've been in treatment on and off since I was 13. And I'm 33, so I'm just now finally getting the hang of it, and it's been a lot. I've had to overcome so many different things in my life that are difficult to even still talk about. I can't say that it's not rewarding. There are days that are still hard, and things are difficult at times. I'm still a very sad person, but all of the things that I've accomplished thus far, and even just the last 2 years, have brought me such a long way and made me a better person,
That's great.
And I don't think that I would have said yes to something like this had you asked me in the beginning of this journey. At all. Because before I was a person who was like, yeah, I'm doing all good things, you know what I mean? And I really wasn't. And now I really am. So it's easy for me to say yes to things.
That's great. Yeah. Congratulations.
It's amazing. Thank you for joining us today. We really do appreciate it.
Yeah.
And you sharing that story, because as you know, we're called the Stigma Stompers since there is still that stigma surrounding mental health. So we truly do appreciate you, joining us and sharing your story and your journey. Yeah. So can you share a little bit more about your experience growing up and how they shaped your views of the world?
Okay, so I grew up in a household that was nothing but mental health problems and drug and alcohol abuse. My dad was a severe alcoholic and a drug addict. He beat my mom, and so that was my mom was depressed and sad all the time and didn't know how to handle that, because in our house it was, you don't talk about it, and mental health treatment was not a thing. Even when I approached my first session for mental health, my dad was like, he's not doing that. It's not happening. He doesn't have a problem. And I think it was mostly because they didn't want to talk about it. So from when my dad and my mom split up when I was 9, I kind of replaced her role because I looked the most like her. I acted the most like her. So I took the abuse, and all my other siblings moved out. And from there, I kind of became like a shell of a person. I didn't have friends. I wasn't allowed to go anywhere. And that started a whole thing with feeling bad about myself because I didn't feel like I was worthy of having friends or I was capable of doing things without being looked at differently. And I grew up, and it's more acceptable now, but when I grew up, homosexuality was not a thing. So, well, at least not in Union City.
Yeah.
And when I acted like myself, it made my dad more angry. So I had to hide who I was as a person for most of my childhood until I was in my late teens. And that in turn just made me sad, you know what I mean? And angry all at the same time. So our relationship was difficult. It was not great. I was at my grandparents a lot. My mom ended up getting a new husband and kind of shunned me off to the side because when I had to involve her, it meant she had to deal with him. And that wasn't something she was ready or prepared to do. Throughout my early teen years, I started using drugs as a coping mechanism. It just started off as like weed and small opiates, and then I dove into harder opiates, and my dad was doing them. So uh, like the disappointment and the pain of him hitting me all the time, like when I finally found drugs, I was like, oh, well, this says take two for pain. You know, I was in a different type of pain, but I thought that it would help in the same way. So that's how I coped through all of that for probably 6 years. And then we finally started doing things together. It just took off from there.
Oh.
Probably when I was 15, I decided to tell my family that I thought that I was homosexual. And I lived with my dad for 3 more years after that. We did not speak to each other at all. Not a happy birthday, not a Merry Christmas, not a good morning, good night. We lived under the same roof and we used drugs together every day, but we did not speak at all. It was all like communicated through my stepmom. And that just made me a bitter person, like really bitter. I became like this great person on the outside that hated everybody on the inside, I guess.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to handle that, so I just kept on getting more and more into using drugs. And it like isolated me from people at school too, because I was different. I didn't feel the same as other people. And when I would try to like communicate how I wanted to be treated, it came out wrong. So I didn't really had a lot of friends. Well, I guess more acquaintances than friends, because I didn't allow myself to get close to anybody. I didn't want them to know what was happening at home because, who's going to believe me? You know what I mean? At that point. And it was like a learned thing that what happens at home stays at home. And if you talk about it, it's a problem. And then you're going to get it even worse.
Yeah.
So I just learned to keep that in things to myself.
I'm so sorry you went through all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have any kind of like resentment for your siblings that moved out or for your mom?
For my mom, at first I did not, because I tried to like be her protector. And that's, I think, why it turned my dad's rage to me. Like right before they got divorced, I had came out and tried inserting myself between them when he was attacking her. And every bit of that rage turned in my direction. Like, I still remember, and it's not so much like being around it every day of his drinking that I remember. It's the initial sting of the beer falling on me when I was getting beat. You know what I mean? So now like that pungent smell is always in the forefront of my mind. She is a different person today than she was back then. And I could touch base on that later.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, I didn't, you know what I mean? Once she got a new husband and she stopped like wanting to spend time with me as much because I was out there, then things were different. Yeah. But in the beginning, I didn't hold resentments for them. I was happy that my brother and sisters got out of there because I didn't want them to endure the same thing that I did. And I thought it was normal. You know what I mean?
If you don't know anything else, then yeah. Right. Where are you, like the oldest, youngest, middle?
My brother's the oldest, I'm second, and then I have 2 younger sisters.
Gotcha. Yeah. I feel like that's also like older sibling, I guess, burden, where you feel like you
have a bigger
want to protect and have a bigger responsibility for your siblings.
Yeah.
Not like burden, but
my brother's like countrified. So he was like my dad's golden child. Like he's money and did all that. And I was the one that was like with my grandma all the time and in the kitchen, so I took on more of a feminine role. So my dad didn't really look at him in that type of way. Whereas my sisters, they just like stayed out of sight, out of mind because they were so young at the time.
Yeah.
So really, I was the only one that got the sole focus. And it's okay. I mean, things happened and
yeah,
I'm over it now for the most part. Therapy helps.
Yeah. Therapy does help.
So my question is, that was a lot to go through. If someone came to you right now in the same situation, what advice would you give them? So essentially, what's some advice you would give your younger self?
Honestly, it would be to talk it would be to reach out to somebody that you can trust and tell what's happening. And if you think they have your best interests at heart, like, I mean, if it's a child, like the age that I was, I think that I would probably tell the first adult that I was able to, knowing what I know now, you know, because like I said, back then you couldn't talk about it. And like my dad's parents, you know, God rest their souls, like they knew what was happening, but you can't control somebody like that. I think they looked at it like, and I don't know for sure because they're not here anymore for me to ask, but I think they looked at it like it's their son and they love him and they're only gonna do what they felt was best for him. And I feel like at the time, if they would have tried to pull me away, which they did as much as they could, like they kept me out of the house as often as possible. But I feel like if they would have did it, it would have caused more damage. So, and I don't know, had I had like been able to seek professional help the way that, because my mom did try to get me in therapy when I was 13 and my dad just wasn't having it. But you have to go outside the box and talk to someone that will help you, you know, because if you don't, like, silence keeps you sick. It really does. Like, and no one can help you if they don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
They don't know what they don't know.
And I feel like once you get that off your chest, even if there's not a physical solution, you getting that off your chest, what's going on, kind of helps a little bit.
And it does. Like, throughout my addiction and trauma from throughout all my life, like, because I've had other trauma that's happened, and I think it was mostly due to dealing with that in general. Like the shame, the guilt, and the anger is really what kept me in the dark places that I was for so long, because I felt like I wasn't worthy to be forgiven for whatever misdeeds I had done, or like I deserved what was happening because I decided to stay. And that ate me for a very long time, you know. And then when I had came out as a homosexual, my dad not talking to me for like it was like 3.5 years. Eventually, like, I got tired of that. And when I did start to stick up for myself, like, I kind of just told him, like, I'm going to go if you can accept me or you don't have to, you know. And I had left for the day. And when I came back, he's like, you know, I love you. I just don't understand and blah, blah, blah. And when that happened, I felt like a sense of relief, like maybe I had accomplished the one thing that I wanted for all those years, which was just his acceptance. Like, you don't have to like it, you know? And then as quick as I got it, it was taken away because he died like 3 weeks after that.
Wow.
And that opened up a whole new set of problems for me, you know, that took on the challenge for me with my higher power, and like made me question a lot of things and put me in even darker places. Ended up in so many bad spots because of that anger and shame and guilt, like, that I thought the only way to shut it off was by using drugs. And every time I would try to go get help, I just would end up self-medicating because the medication wasn't working quick enough. The therapy wasn't working quick enough. Nothing was doing what I wanted it to do except for opiates. And that only gave me the power to use the power switch, you know, and turn everything off. And I loved that. And I tell that to the clients I work with now all the time. Like, I understand using your power switch, you know, because that's the easiest and the fastest way to have no emotion or have all the emotion that you want. And after shutting it off for so long, like, it becomes like a tsunami when you stop using, and everything is so overpowering that the only thing you want to do is pick back up no matter how bad you don't want to. And it makes it hard.
I feel like that's a common misconception. We've talked about alcohol and substance misuse a lot, especially last year. I think we did 2 episodes on it. Like you said, you know, a lot of people will probably judge someone who misuses substances, but when you look at it, I mean, they're doing this for a reason. Like you said, it's a quick fix in the moment. You know, therapy takes time for you to get to a good place. Well, that's something quick and it helps you feel better. And we never know what these individuals are going through in their personal lives.
Yeah. And it's still, like you said in the beginning, like, the stigma of it is serious. In a way. even now after 2 years of sobriety, like my family, like, well, my grandma, I won't say my family because most of my family use. But my grandma, like, she just gave me back like full reign of trust with her. And a lot of people still look at me the same, and that's okay. You know what I mean? I'm not bothered that they look at me like that. Do I wish that they wouldn't? Absolutely. But it's a lot easier knowing for myself that I'm doing the right things. And because they still expect me to follow. And that's the sad part of all of it. Like, because after all the times that I tried and attempted, because I've attempted a lot of times to get to where I am, and it didn't matter how many therapy sessions I did, what kind of medications I was on, if I hid my addiction from the world and no one knew, like, because I was good at, like, I had a lot of really good jobs that I should not have had in the past because I hid it well. And because of growing up being beat, you learn how to hide things. I would do so well, and then I would fall completely off and hurt a lot of people in the process. So when that happens, like, even like I said, now people still look at me and they expect me to fall off and do wrong things, you know, and you just have to learn to be okay with that. As long as you're okay with yourself, like, other people will eventually fall into line, I feel like. And if they don't, that's okay. It's time, like, start a new chapter and get new people.
Yeah. At the end of the day, you have to do what's best for you, no matter what others think. And if it helps any, we're supporting you, and, you know, we're proud of you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, of course. We've heard great stuff from Sharon. I know you've interacted.
Sharon raves about you.
Yeah.
I had 2 questions for you, actually. Would you say that people almost like expecting you to fall off again motivates you to stay on, or do you think it's like self-motivated, like you're doing it for you?
I think it's a little bit of both. I used to be, and well, let me not say used to be, I still am a big people pleaser. Like,
That's hard to break.
and I like it.
It feels good, dude. Like, it feels good.
It does. And it's almost like a selfish thing that I do. Like, helping you helps me in internal ways, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel good about myself, knowing that I'm finally not being selfish. And a lot of it is for me, because for a long time I didn't feel like I was worth it. Like, I didn't think that, you know, I thought that prison was okay. Like, I used to joke and say that was home for me, because I have been in and out. Like, I'm 33 and most of my adult life is in prison. And that's sick. That's sad. You know, it really is. Like, people look at, like, they're like, where are you at? What are you doing? Like, I used to look at them in response and tell them, like, you know, I'm doing me. Like, and I am still doing me, but, like, I'm on track to do good things. Like, when I was telling all my friends about this and I told my grandma about it, my grandma was, like, so excited she cried. I'm like, why?
Don't even talk to me.
And I do, but it's not intentionally, you know? And I think it's just like an overwhelming sense of relief that I'm not the same person. And so now when I do things for other people and for myself, like, it's because I want to do better. And I want people to see that they can do it too. It's not just, I want you to see me. I want you to see that there's another way and that there's hope for you as well. Like, for my family, even like my sisters and my brother, and my brother's doing great now too. Me and him went through this whole thing together, like, as far as using in jail and whatever. And my sisters, like, fell off and they have drug problems. My mom, after, like, most of her life of never touching drugs, now has a drug problem. They all have their own set of issues that I'm not going to take their inventory, but, like, they do. And they could greatly benefit from some of the things that I do, such as therapy or medication or even just talking to somebody else, but they don't. And so when I do things now, I try to, like, show them that it's okay to do that, you know, because oh, I'm proud of you. Well, I'm proud of me too, but, like, there's another way for you as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's why when I do things now, like, I do them so that everybody can see. And, like, this, for instance, I was so nervous
You're doing great.
Hey, what's you got a podcast? And I'm like, Sharon. All right.
I think this is definitely hearing that personal side of stuff, what
Yeah.
you went through, because it's probably difficult in that situation to think, I can actually get clean, I can get help, because you're in that situation at the moment. So you're probably thinking, well, I can't get out of this right now. So you sharing your story and letting people know, what you went through and how far you've come, I think truly is an inspiration for individuals, especially if they're doubting, like, I'll never get out of this. This is my life. So thank you again for
Yeah.
sharing it, because
It's really important.
yeah.
It's the same fact that like peer support led by peers is just as important. You talking about your story on like a public platform is also important. So like the people that might not get to a support group can still hear from you. It's really important. So thank you. My other question, what was like the straw that broke the camel's back on like and made this time stick? If there's like one thing, I don't know.
Honestly, the one thing was, because I've lost things before, you know what I mean? And I'm not talking about material things. I'm talking about people in general. I lost everything, mentally, like emotionally, physically. Like I was at a zero, an empty tank, and sitting in jail, facing a 4 to 8 in prison,
Wow.
and years, not months.
I know. Yeah.
And knowing that, like, this has got to stop. Like, it's not okay, like, to be in and out of jail. It's not okay to have everyone just constantly expecting for you to be here. You know what I mean? And for myself to feel like that, even, I was married for almost 10 years, and that was in itself a whole issue. He was an alcoholic. I was a drug addict. And I cared about him a lot, you know what I mean? But I was never fully in love with him. And I had met somebody, and that took every emotion I had and made me feel like that was a new high for me. So I ended my marriage and ended up trying to pursue that relationship. And when that ended, because I chose to go back to using drugs in order to cope with my own set of problems, he did not like that, was not ready for that, and left me essentially. And it broke everything inside of me. So when I went to prison, like, all of my belongings gone, all of my relationships gone, all my friends, where, you know what I mean? Because you really learn who your friends are when you go to jail. Like the people that care about you. And it's not because they give you money. It's because like they send you an email saying, how are you? And you know how many people did that? 0.
Wow.
And that's okay. You know what I mean? Because people have lives and it doesn't stop revolving. The world does not stop when you go into jail. But it's nice to know that some people out on the outside still think about you, and that didn't happen, and that's because I burnt every bridge I had. Like, there was no bridges left.
Wow.
Ashes and rubble, nothing to walk over. And that was where, I was sitting in my cell and I was facing a whole slew. I had like 12 felonies and 8 misdemeanors and 14 summary charges. And they're like, you're getting a 4 to 8. That is your deal. And I had never been offered anything like treatment court. You know what I mean? I was doing the drug and alcohol. I was doing therapy in there. I was talking to the counselor regularly when you could. And, people kept talking about it, and they're like, oh, it's a setup. It's a setup. And something in my mind just was like, it's only a setup if you don't think you can do it, if you don't want to get your life together. So when I had wrote to my attorney like 4 or 5 times, he never responded. He was on vacation. And court came up on a Tuesday, and Monday the head public defender, Nicole Sloan, she came in and she's like, do you want to sign your waiver so that we can just get this done and try to get you sentenced? And I was like, well, I've tried applying for treatment court. And she's like, well, we haven't got your application. Do you want to do it? And I was like, yeah. She's like, well, you still have to go to court tomorrow. And it was in front of literally the harshest judge in Erie County. And when she told me who my judge was, and she's like, eesh. I'm like, why would you say that? You know what I mean? The way to make me more nervous.
Yeah.
And she's like, we want to try to get this postponed. And I'm like, okay. So I went to court on the camera in the jail, and I asked for a postponement. And when the judge asked me why I thought I deserved a postponement, you know, I had to think for a second. And I think he was probably impatient with me, but I wanted to say what I meant.
Yeah.
What I thought he wanted to hear. And honestly, after years of going in and out of prison, I feel like the prison system is enough to get you sober for the most part. I mean, I'm not going to say that completely, because drugs are still in the prison system and people are still using it. And that makes it very hard to stay sober once you get there, no matter what program they put you in.
Yeah.
However, I've been in prison multiple times, in the county jail a lot of times, and nothing's changing. The only thing that you're doing is making me older by the time I come. And there's no thought change. There's no thinking patterns that are different. Like, I'm making the same bad decisions, except for maybe a little bit better this time, because you're putting me in a setting with nothing but criminals who don't have any plans on changing. What do they? And when I told him that, he just kind of like cocked his head and looked at me like, and with a little smirk on his face, and he's like, I'm going to grant you the postponement.
Wow.
And that was just, and it wasn't because I wanted out of jail, because I deserved to be there. You know, everything I did and the people that I hurt landed me that seat, and I did not deserve to get out. I felt like, you know, and now that I'm where I'm at, I feel like I did deserve that, because I have the opportunity to better me and help better other people. And that's not where I thought I would be. Like, taking the journey that I am right now, I did not think this is where I was headed at all 2 years ago. I would have been like, oh, okay. You know what I mean? Like, let's try again. But if that makes you feel better, you can tell yourself that that's how it's going to happen, you know?
Yeah.
But it is. And I like it.
Good.
Yeah.
That's so great.
That's
I'm so happy for you.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So we've talked about Sharon. You utilize many services like CRS, BCM, and NAMI. Can you share how each of these has supported your recovery?
So NAMI, when I was in Gage House, honestly, in the beginning, like, it was very drawn out with NAMI. But I was fully focused, you know, like, I was really paying attention to the things that she was talking about as far as trauma, or, you know, your mental stability and how your family plays a role in all of that. And Sharon has such a magnetizing aura to her. Some people don't feel it, but I felt it. You know, like, I was like, hey, Sharon, hey, girl. And she came in, she was like, hey, Kyle, you know, because I think, and I didn't do better than anybody else. I don't want to say that, but like, I was really focused on what she was talking about, you know, and because my mental health is my problem. Like, yes, drugs were my problem too, but had I not had the mental problems that I did, and the, you know, all of the loneliness, I guess I would say, I don't think that I would have been so drawn to my addiction part. I think it would have been a lot easier to solve had I not had those issues, you know. And I feel like everybody probably has mental health issues, you know.
Everyone has mental health. It depends on if it's good or bad. Yeah. Depends on the day.
True.
Depends on the hour sometimes.
But when she started doing her classes, like, that was when I really started to focus on that aspect of my problem. And Gage House, like, it is drug and alcohol. They're dual diagnosed, but like, they mainly focus because most of their employees are CRSs, and they send you out to do, you know, the crime victim center or the stairways or wherever you need to go. They send you for your drug and alcohol problem, and you do groups all day long, literally from 9 in the morning till 9 at night. And that one time a week turned in like her thick packets that she brings.
Yeah.
I would read them throughout the week, because sometimes it's hard to follow when you're just skimming, you know. But a lot of things made sense, and like, that was probably one of the best things that happened to me at Gage House. my CRS and BCM, like I have an amazing CRS and BCM. But I have a CRS through Stairways, and she has helped guide me in ways through my recovery as far as like my 12-step program goes, because even though I have not had a problem with alcohol, I use the AA traditions because there's more long-term sobriety there, and I feel like I connect better with people on that level in the rooms of AA. And she's just helped push me in that direction because by sharing her own journey and her own problems and struggles, like, and where she's at now today, you know, because she's been in the same situation, maybe different aspects of it, but going through the same thing. And it's helpful to know that someone else that's doing that well can help guide you in that path that you want to take. And my BCM, I connected with her through treatment court, and she's helped link me up with so many services. As far like she helped get me on the insurance and put me into different things out in the community. Throughout between her and my CRS, I'm now part of the Northwest Advisory Committee, and I'm a board member for CTBH. Like,
That's great.
Amazing.
I wouldn't be there without them. You know what I mean? A lot of people take things like that for granted, and like that's part of what I do in my job now. Like, even though that's not part of my job, like I still push people to connect with other services that are available to them at the moment upon their departure, because I feel like it's important.
Yeah, it is.
We can only teach you so many things while you're here, especially me, because I'm only a house monitor, which I'm trying to move up the ranks, you know, but it's helpful to know that there are other things and other people and professions that can help push you to do better as a person, because it's not enough to only go through a 90-day program and focus on that while you're there and then be thrown back out to the world with nothing but your hat and your shoes and expect to be okay, you know, because you learn a lot in those 90 days, or whether it's a 40-day or a 30-day rehab, whatever it may be. Like, at the end of the day, there's more when you leave, and a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah.
You know, so I take advantage of all of those services.
Good. That's great. I wish more people would.
Yeah.
First of all, congratulations on everything. I mean, those are big
so
things,
great.
and things take time. So we have faith in you. You'll get there. Also, I wanted to ask you, when it comes to like jail or like the rehab services, is there anything that you think that could be improved to the participants on the side of mental health? Do you think there should be a bigger focus on mental health since there is that dual diagnosis?
Absolutely. I feel like all rehabilitative centers should have mental health, should all be dual diagnosed as well. And like they should all have their own on-site doctor, psychiatrist, psychologist, whatever they need. Because it is so prevalent. A lot of people, like I said before, they use to mask their mental health issue. And I think that for the most part, most of the facilities that I've been in do focus on that. It's hard because in jail, they have a doctor, but you see him once every couple months. You don't really have therapy. For me, my breaking of my milestones was the mix between medication and therapy. And that goes for both my mental health and my drug addiction, because I'm also on Vivitrol. And if I didn't have the second part of that, I don't feel like it would work. In prison, they just like to throw you on medication and hope that it works. And if it doesn't, you write them, come back, and we'll change it and try something different. You know, the only time you really get a one-on-one session with a psychologist is when you're in a suicide cell. You know, to be
Really?
that's just to get you out of it. Other than that, like you write to them and they come and they do like a thing on the computer and they ask you, like, do a mental health evaluation or whatever, get the full psychological evaluation for this. But they ask you, you know, things about the last 5 years of your life, and then they put you on medication. And that's not going to do anything, because the medication's only half of the solution. So
Yeah, you have to talk about your problems that you're going through as well, like where it's stemming from.
yeah. And in like rehab, Gage House was amazing, you know, because they do have that on-site doctor, and they do have to go to all different kinds of therapy and have all different types of counseling come into the building. And it's only a small group of you, and you're literally together all day, every day, talking about one thing after another. And sometimes it is mentally exhausting, you know, when you're so focused on the drug aspect or just the mental aspect instead of putting them together. And that is where I feel like there could be room for improvement, when is to focus on both and not one or the other. Because a lot of people say, oh, I don't need to go to therapy, but you do, you know, because if I didn't have I'm just going to call all of my services therapists, because I treat them all like that. I really do. Like, I talk to this one, and this one, and they all listen and they all have different input, and it's super helpful like that. You know?
Yeah.
They probably could bill for a lot more service.
I love that.
I kind of want to move toward more to your mental health journey. So can you talk about some of if you're comfortable, some of your diagnoses, how they came about, and like what you do to kind of cope with them now?
Okay, so I have bipolar, PTSD, and anxiety. My anxiety and my depression are kind of like up and down a lot. Like, I have manic episodes very frequently. They're better now because I take a stabilizer. I feel like my bipolar really came into play when I was young, obviously, because I would have anger outbursts because I was building everything up over time. And the PTSD, I feel like they diagnosed me with PTSD after my dad died. And then because when he died, we went up, we found him, and it was just a whole slew of things that happened in my life, one after another, you know, I ended up putting myself in risky situations and was having sex for money, and ended up being raped multiple times. And so everything kind of just concaved all at one time in my life. And I just became this big emotional
mess. Rightfully so.
And I didn't know that's what was happening. And I had doctors tell me, and I'm like, okay, give me a check. I'm just kidding. I didn't get a check. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, over the years, it manifested in different areas in my life. I didn't know how to cope with it. So I was an angry person and a sad person all at the same time. My family, like I said, they don't know anything about mental health. They didn't know how to handle that. So they just thought I had anger issues. And the more that I used and it blocked it out, the worse than it got. I just started being able to live a normal, semi-normal life mentally, because I was a wreck. I would laugh hysterically, but be bawling my eyes out and not know what was going on, because I felt every emotion, whether it was anger or sadness or frustration or anxiety or depression, and it all was one thing. You know what I mean? I didn't know how to define it. And really, the more that I talk about it, the better that I feel. And that's where all of those therapists I was talking about come into play, you know what I mean? Because I would do things, like I said before, because I thought I deserved them, you know, and that includes hurting myself, you know, because in 2011, I had a suicide attempt, and I've OD'd numerous times on purpose, you know what I mean? Because I didn't feel like being here anymore. And then when I would wake up, I'd be super mad. I'd be like, can't even kill myself, right? You know? And that's the truth of it. Because first, when you don't know, you don't know.
Yep.
And I didn't feel like there was anything that you or anybody else could do to help me. Because how can you undo all of the years of hurt that I did to myself or that other people did to me, you know? And when you have, my family ties were so strong that we went, we did, we talked, we seen everything together. And when they're like, it's okay, there's nothing wrong with you, you know what I mean? Eventually you feel like there's nothing wrong with you, but you don't know how to control the emotion part of it. And I think that I've been on and off my mood stabilizer for probably 7 or 8 years. And every time that it wasn't doing what I thought it should be doing, like I said, I went back to self-medicating. but I wouldn't go to therapy while I was taking my meds, you know? And now, like, I'm on my medication. I go to therapy several times throughout the month, like, and things like I said, NAMI, intensive outpatient, it all gave me a different perspective on those mental health problems, you know? And now I look and address them differently.
Wow.
And to that.
Yeah, absolutely. That was great.
So how do you think your experiences in life with everything integrate with your current role as a house monitor at Snug Harbor?
So as a house monitor, I don't think it's more that I'm not supposed to use those experiences, but it allows me to be with the clients as a group or one-on-one throughout the day, and just by sharing with them, you know, because that went a long way for me. Having other people, like, it's difficult when you go to a treatment facility and you have someone trying to teach you that has not been through it. Even just in my most recent relationship, he has never had problems with drugs, alcohol. Now that he's had his own like problems, you know what I mean? But the only way that I could explain it to him, when he kept saying, I understand. And that drove me crazy when I was in rehab several times, not at Gage House, but other ones in the past. It would drive me nuts when I knew that they did not really understand. Like, you understand from a textbook point of view, but you don't understand what is really going on inside my head because you've never had that issue. And you can say it till you're blue in the face, but the reality of it is that a client is really not hearing you unless they know that you've had similar experiences. And I probably share too much, you know what I mean, as a house monitor. But when I first started that job, they were doing a little, they're calling in-house AA meeting and like a morning check-in or whatever. And they were talking about like what their goals were for the week and what they're dealing with right now. And like, they said, this is how institutionalized I was. They said, you know, what's your DOC? And me, I should have known they meant drug of choice. And I was like, oh, it's KQ 3616. And they're like, everyone laughed at me. And I'm like, what are you laughing at? And they're like, not your inmate number, Kyle. Not your Department of Corrections number. Like, we're talking about your drug of choice. And that's where like, I think it opened a lot of doors for them to be able to talk to me because they don't know if I've been through that, you know what I mean, unless you tell them. So like doing what I do, which is just basically, in the beginning, it started off as being their cigarette monitor and making sure they were up for meals. And because I work third shift, and now I've been like integrating between second and third, and now I'm about to go to first. And I wanted that because I'm able to work with them more. Because I don't want to be with them while they're sleeping. That defeats the purpose of why I wanted to work in rehab.
Yeah.
You know, because I did try to go to Gage House when I left, and they're like, oh, you have to wait a couple of years because you were just a client here. And I understand. But like, knowing how it helped me makes me want to do it for other people.
Yeah.
So now I just I listen more than anything. But when they do ask for my input, I feel like they're listening back and not just asking and then really avoiding what I'm telling and walk off because that's but they did. I see them do it to other staff. You know what I mean? If they know that you've not been in this situation and they ask you a question and you give them a very vague answer, they just kind of like roll their eyes and turn and walk in the other direction. And that's okay too. You know what I mean? But they have to know that that's okay. And that's kind of what I try to let them see, is that it's all right to be yourself, right? But also know that there are people here that want to help you, other than getting it.
Right.
Yeah. So you became a CRS in April?
No, I'm on track to become a CRS.
Oh, okay.
That's exciting.
What does becoming a CRS mean to you personally and professionally?
So personally, I feel like it'll be a constant reminder of where it's not that I'll forget, but it is easy to push it to the side. You're focused on other people and being a people pleaser.
Yeah.
And, you know, like I said earlier, that is part of why I do like being a people pleaser, because it allows me to be outside of myself, because otherwise you're in a dark place by yourself when you're in your head. You know?
Yep.
And that's not where I like to be trapped. So I feel like it'll be that reminder that I need, that every day there's still someone that's struggling that is where I was, and needs someone to help guide them in the same direction that I'm heading myself. And eventually, like, I want that to eventually lead me into a drug and alcohol counseling degree. Like, that's just my stepping stone. So that's where I look at it from my professional point of view, because I do want to get to where everyone else that I look up to at this point in my life and admire is already at, because the people that I look up to are the people that are helping others, and the ones that have been through similar life situations and overcame them. Because if I didn't know those people and I didn't have those people, I don't know if I would have looked at recovery the same way, or mental health, to be honest. Like, because any other time I went into mental health treatment, I was like, oh my God, this guy's getting a real nice paycheck for telling me that and that's what I felt like.
I mean, that's so valid, especially if they don't have the experience. It can definitely feel like they're just there to be there.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's really great. I'm very excited for you.
Yeah.
You're doing it. Like,
right.
You're not just trying, you're doing it. So that's really great.
If we don't see you, we'll keep asking Sharon for updates.
Yeah.
For sure. So how do you define hope, and what does it mean to you? How does it compare to now and earlier in your life?
So, I mean, defining hope, I feel like I look at it like trust. And I really used to hate when people said this, trust the process. Now I kind of look at hope in that way, like trust in myself.
Mm-hmm.
Before, like, it was like wishing on a star that it was never going to happen. And, every day I would wake up when I was growing up, like, please get me out. I hope to God I don't have to deal with this today, or whatever. Like, it would be, but there was no action behind it. You know what I mean? Now hope for me is just, it's knowing that by doing better for myself, I'm doing better for everybody in my, like, immediate circle, which is very few. But I feel like at the end of the day, if I didn't have any for a long time, you know what I mean? Like, using and ignoring all of my problems, I didn't have hope for the future at all. Like, I was accepting of being in prison and accepting of losing everything, feeling like I deserved it, you know what I mean? But every step that I took by doing the next right thing, it pushed me into, like, knowing for myself that there is hope for the future, that I can do better, and that there's more that I'm meant to do. Whereas before, I didn't think that at all. I didn't think that there was a better thing, a better side to things. Like, all those people that have all these nice things and a great life, like, are they really having a great life?
Mm-hmm.
Or is that just BS?
Mm-hmm.
And every day that I, like, woke up for, like, the first year of the last 2 years, I would just continuously tell myself, like, things are going to be better today than they were yesterday. And if they're not, they'll be better tomorrow. Like, and eventually it started to come true. You know what I mean? Like, I worked that 12-step program, and that really helped me a lot with the hope department.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was angry with my higher power. You know what I mean? And everybody's higher power is different. Me personally, mine is energy, because I believe that you get what you put out. If you're happy,
yeah,
and if you're miserable, nothing great is going to come of that.
I like that.
So every day I strive, even if I'm not having the best of days, to have hope that tomorrow will be better. And I continue to put my right foot in front of my left and make someone else's day brighter, because in turn it helps me.
Like, I love that. Mm-hmm. So would you say hope stems from the work? So, like, yeah, the energy you put out, hope stems from the work you're able to put into yourself and into the world? I
feel like it does, honestly. Because if I was still old Kyle, which occasionally old Kyle almost pops out, but I remember that I was such a, and there are still days, like I said before, that I am depressed. Mm-hmm. But I was such a depressed person before, where your happiness meant more than my own, and my own meant nothing. But that's because I wasn't doing anything. You know what I mean? Until I started doing something for myself, like there wasn't any hope. And I felt like I was alone in the cycle. Like you could tell me until you were blue in the face that you wanted what was best for me. But did you really? Because what were you doing for me? You know what I mean? And that's how I thought. But I wasn't doing anything for myself, so there wasn't hope at all.
Wow.
And the cycle really is vicious. The prison cycle and the addiction cycle and your mental cycle, like everything intertwines together. And until I started fixing myself internally, nothing externally was working. And as soon as I started to look at myself and the role that I played in my own well-being, I was trapped. And when I started doing those things and focusing on myself and not caring what anybody else thought about the journey that I was taking, and only focused on doing the right things, then did that gate open for myself finally. And then I feel like the more times that I say yes, like this, for example, or, with my sponsor or with my BCM or with treatment court, like I have done like so many things just since I've been out of Gage House. Even like my IOP's done, my OP's done, my community service is done, like, and those are all things before where I would have let my mental health affect me. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to go out today. I don't want to be around people. I would have went back to jail because I didn't care about myself enough to get up and better myself. So now, like, that I have so many of those things out of my way, like I can focus on my mental health the most. And I do. I still, like, I don't have to be in therapy, but I go and my therapist is like, do you want to come back? Absolutely not. You know what I mean? Like, I'm still coming to see you every 2 weeks because even though I am where I am, I still need that. And that's where I feel like hope should be a big thing for a lot of people, because it's okay to say that you need help. And it's okay to still continue to get that help even when you're doing great.
I love that a lot. I feel like a large part of it is that huge self-awareness, like knowing that you still need to go even if they're asking if you want to cut back, like knowing that that's something you need, being aware of what you need, and then making sure that your opinion matters more about your journey than others. I think those are very important key takeaways for anyone listening. So I love that a lot.
Yeah, that's amazing. So before we end our podcast today, is there a message that you want to send to all of our listeners who are listening today? Anything that you want to let them know?
I think mostly what I would say is just don't be afraid to talk to anybody. Like, seek the help that you need and know that you're doing what's best for yourself. Don't worry about nobody else, and don't care what they think, because a lot of people get trapped in that cycle where, like, they don't want to be seen different because of their mental health, and like, oh, I'm in therapy or whatever. Like, don't worry about those people. Like, worry about doing what's best for yourself. And like I said, don't get trapped by the shame, the guilt, and the anger, because that really is what keeps you down. And it's okay to not be okay.
I love that.
Perfect.
We actually have a shirt that says that. It's okay.
You can buy it on our bonfire storefront on our website. No, we definitely, it's everywhere. We definitely also plagiarized it.
She comes up with all the shirts, and there's some really, really cute ones.
Thank you.
Do you want a really good idea? Hurt people hurt people. I say that all the time. And that's another thing I say, like, to all my friends,
It's true.
So angry, and I'm like, it's okay that she's angry. Like, hurt people. Like, she's got to win herself, and that's, I say that a lot.
It may end up on a shirt.
Right, there we go.
I don't know.
Well, thank you so much, Kyle, for joining us today and sharing your personal story. I know sometimes is not easy to do. So we truly do appreciate you joining us today and sharing with all of our viewers.
Well, I appreciate you asking me.
Thank you so
No
much,
problem at
and
all.
we'll stay in touch.
All right.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Stigma Stompers Podcast. We truly appreciate all your support.
If you want to see more about what we do in our community, make sure you check out our website. It's namierie.org. Make sure you also click on our t-shirt store tab so you can buy a t-shirt. We get a portion of all the proceeds. And make sure you sign up for our newsletter. It has all of our programming and event updates.
Another way you can get involved is if you feel comfortable sharing your personal story. You can email us at info@namierie.org, or you can give us a call at 814-456-1773.
Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Bye!